Welcome, everyone, to our Conversation Book Club. As we continue to dive deep into The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, today we'll be turning our attention to Chapter 11, What Can Schools Do Now? This chapter challenges us to rethink how schools handle technology and what truly fosters connection, learning, and well-being with our kids. So Haidt makes a bold but necessary argument, and he said school phone bans that only apply to class time are ineffective. The problem isn't just phone use during the lessons, it's what happens between classes, at lunch, and during every free moment when kids are meant to be engaging with their peers. He writes, and I quote on page 249, most public schools in the United States say they ban phones. 77% say so in a 2020 survey. But that usually just means that the school forbids phone use during class time. It means that the moment class ends, most students will pull out their phones, check their text feeds, and ignore the students next to them. A phone ban limited class time is nearly useless. This is why schools should go phone-free for the entirety of the school day. And think about it. What good is a classroom phone ban if students spend every break scrolling rather than talking? Schools aren't just places for academic learning. They're also a social training grounds where kids should be developing communication skills, emotional intelligence, and friendships. But with phones in hand, these essential moments are vanishing. To help your child understand why full-day phone bans matter, here is a simple story for you to read aloud to them. The school, the soccer team, and the distraction problem. 12-year-old Sophie loved soccer. She had a natural talent for the game, but more than that, she loved the thrill of playing with her team and improving her skills. Coach Roberts had one rule: no phones on the field, ever. Sophie didn't mind. She knew that when she was at practice, her focus needed to be on the game, not on her phone. Besides, she was too busy running drills and passing to her teammates to even think about checking it. But one day, Sophie's school announced a new phone-free policy. No more scrolling through social media between classes, no more texting at lunch, and absolutely no phones in the classroom. Sophie was frustrated. That's not fair, she grumbled to her dad. I don't even use my phone that much. Why should everyone lose their phones just because some kids can't focus? Her dad thought for a moment, and then he said, Sophie, what would happen if Coach Roberts suddenly let everyone check their phones during practice? Sophie wrinkled her nose. Well, that would be a disaster. No one would hear him call plays, people wouldn't pass, and some kids would probably stop paying attention altogether. Her dad nodded. Exactly. Phones aren't bad, but in the wrong place at the wrong time, they make it harder for everyone to focus and work together and improve. That's why your coach doesn't allow them on the field, because soccer isn't just about what one person's doing. It's about the whole team working together. Sophie thought about that for a moment. Then she remembered kids getting distracted by their phones in class, missing what the teacher said. She also remembered how even when she wasn't using her phone, sometimes she was thinking about checking it. Just like when she wanted to check a message during practice instead of focusing on the game. Okay, I guess that makes sense, Sophie admitted. It's still annoying, but I get why they're doing it. Her dad smiled. You know, schools have a lot in common with soccer teams. It's their job to help students learn, build skills, and prepare for the future. Just like it's your coach's job to train players, guide the team, and make sure everyone improves, a school's job is to help every student develop their focus, thinking skills, and ability to work with others. If distractions get in the way, whether it's a phone or too much noise or kids not paying attention, then the school has to set rules to make learning possible for everyone. Sophie thought for a moment. So schools aren't banning phones just to be strict. They're doing it to help us learn better, just like Coach Roberts does at practice? Exactly, her dad said. Schools are responsible for creating environments where students can focus and grow, not just in math and reading, but in concentration, problem solving, and teamwork. A phone-free school doesn't mean they don't trust students. It means they're doing their job to help everyone do their best. The next day at school, Sophie noticed something she hadn't before. Without phones, kids actually talked at lunch. In class, her friend Tyler, who usually stared at his screen between lessons, actually joined a conversation. Sophie still liked her phone, but now she understood something very important. Schools, like coaches, make decisions to help everyone improve, and sometimes the best way to focus on the game or learning is to put distractions away. When you're finished the story, ask your child a question to spark the conversation. Why do you think Sophie was okay not using her phone at soccer practice, but upset about the school rule? Have you ever felt like a rule was unfair at first, but later understood why it was in place? Just like Sophie realized that phones could disrupt soccer practice, schools are recognizing that phones disrupt learning, focus, and peer relationships. And just like a coach makes decisions for the good of the team, schools must set rules that benefit all students. Haidt also addresses a common parental concern when it comes to school phone bans: what happens in an emergency? Now, many parents argue that their children must have access to their phone in case of a crisis, such as a school shooting. While this fear is understandable, Haidt points out that a counterintuitive truth, and I quote, some parents object that they need to be able to reach their children immediately in case of an emergency, such as a school shooting. As a parent, I understand this desire, but a school in which most students are calling or texting their parents during an emergency is likely to be less safe than a school in which only the adults have phones and the students are listening to the adults and paying attention to their surroundings. In a crisis, students glued to their phones may miss life-saving instructions from teachers, fail to remain aware in the environment, or spread misinformation that fuels panic. Schools that are phone-free all day create a culture where adults lead and students listen, ensuring safer and more effective emergency responses. He doesn't just argue for phone-free schools to improve socialization, but he also makes the case that academic performance has suffered since smartphones became widely used among teens. For decades, student test scores in the United States steadily improved. Then around 2012, something changed. And Haidt points out that this shift coincided with the rise of smartphones, leading to a shortened attention span in classrooms. He says on page 250, and I quote, scores had been rising pretty consistently from the 1970s until 2012, and then they reversed. COVID restrictions and remote schooling added to the decline, especially in math. But the drop between 2012 and the beginning of COVID was substantial. The reversal coincided with the moment teens traded in their basic phones for smartphones, leading to a big increase in attention fragmentation throughout the school day. This isn't just about kids spending time on their phones. It's about how the devices are rewiring their attention spans. So even though students aren't actively scrolling, their focus is compromised. The habit of constant checking, rapid switching between tasks, and the expectation of instant notification makes deep, sustained learning harder. In short, it's not just social skills that suffer in phone-saturated school environment. Academic performance does too. If smartphones are fragmenting attention and weakening learning, the question becomes, what can schools do to counteract this? Simply removing phones isn't enough. Students need opportunity to rebuild focus and resilience. And this is where play comes in. Haidt argues that schools must be both phone-free and play-full if they want to set students up for long-term success. Haidt says 253 and on to 254. A school that is phone-free and playful is investing in prevention. It is reducing overprotection in the real world, which helps kids to cultivate anti-fragility. At the same time, it is loosening the grip of the virtual world, thereby fostering better learning and relationships in the real world. A school that does neither is likely to struggle with high levels of student anxiety and will need to spend large amounts of money to treat students' growing distress. The solution isn't just removing phones, it's replacing them with something better. Schools that embrace free play, unstructured interaction, and hands-on learning aren't just reducing distraction, they're strengthening kids' ability to focus, build confidence, and develop resilience. But for many children, the habit of taking risks and trying new things has already been weakened. When play disappears and overprotection takes its place, kids lose the confidence to explore, problem solve, and push their own limits. This creates a cycle where both children and their parents are more fearful of the unknown. Haidt describes this downward spiral on page 255. He said, kids are afraid to try something new, and their parents don't have confidence that they can do something new, all of which leads to more overprotection, which leads to more anxiety. And this overprotection mindset isn't just shaping how parents raise their kids, it's also shaping how schools operate. In an effort to improve academic performance, schools have unintentionally stripped away the very experiences that kids need to develop resilience and confidence. And on page 257, he said a landmark 1983 report titled A Nation at Risk. The report warned that American kids were falling behind those of other nations in test scores and academic proficiency. It recommended increasing rigor by spending more time on academic subjects and considerably lengthening the school year. Schools responded. Time allotted for recess, gym, art, and music classes all decreased to make way for more math, science, and English. But what if the solution to improving kids' well-being isn't found in lower school hours or more academic rigor? What if the key to better mental health, a stronger focus, and healthier relationships is actually found in something as simple as better recess? Haidt gives 3 things that schools can do to improve mental health through recess. First, give students more of it. Second, improve the playground. And third, reduce rules and increase trust. So does this approach actually work? Well, a study in New Zealand compared schools that loosened playground rules with those that made no changes. And the results? Well, there's more energy, rougher play, but also greater happiness and improved physical safety. You say, how? Well, on page 261, he says, kids will take on responsibility for their safety when they are actually responsible for their safety, rather than relying on the adult guardians hovering over them. So we've explored how phone use in schools isn't just a distraction, it's fundamentally reshaping childhood, socialization, and learning. We've also seen how unstructured play and increasing student autonomy, they're not just luxuries, but essential components of healthy development. But what happens if we don't change course? Haidt points out that we're already seeing the effects of phone-dominated childhoods playing out in middle schools, high schools, and even universities. And he says on page 264, and I will read it to you, anxious and depressed students have been flowing from middle schools to high schools since the early 2010s, and high schools are struggling to respond, as are universities. But we can stem the flow. If we can keep smartphones entirely out of elementary school and middle schools while making more room for free play and student autonomy, then the students who enter high school in a few years will be healthier and happier. So this isn't just, it's a matter of opinion, it's a documented shift in adolescent well-being that we can't afford to ignore. But Haidt reminds us that we're not powerless. And he said schools and communities and parents, we have to act now by prioritizing phone-free schools, not just during class, but throughout the entire school day. More free play and autonomy, so kids build confidence, creativity, and resilience. A cultural shift away from overprotection, allowing kids to experience manageable risks that prepare them for the real world. So what can parents do? Number 1, attend school board meetings. Advocate for full-day phone bans and increased recess time. Schools are more likely to act when parents actively push for change. Number 2, delay smartphones and social media use. The longer kids wait to use these technologies, the better their focus, independence, and real-world social skills. Number 3, if your child already has a smartphone, get educated. Learn the platforms, apps, games, and the terminology they use, understanding how these technologies are designed to keep kids hooked so you can guide them towards healthier habits. And number 4, be a unified voice. Connect with other parents who support these changes. Schools are more likely to take action when they see collective support from families. If we take these steps now, we can help reverse the trend of rising anxiety and depression in young people. This chapter challenges us to think beyond the immediate. What kind of school environments do we want for the next generation? If we make bold changes now, we won't have to treat as many struggling teens later. Instead, we'll be raising capable, confident, and emotionally strong young adults. Let's continue this conversation, advocate for change, and support the movement toward healthier, more balanced childhood. Until the next time.